And I'm gonna switch over here to share my screen. Oops. Obviously, I can't talk and do this at the same time. Okay, so I think you should all be able to see my screen now, hopefully. So, okay. So like I said, my name's Neil Davis, and I work with Walk Bike Mendocino and Ukiah Valley Trail Group. Walk Bike Mendocino is a program of Ukiah Valley of North Coast Opportunities. And I'm going to be talking today about a project that we have been working on for the last couple years with a big push towards the end here for the last few months. And I'm hoping that you can think about, one of the things that we did is we did some work on, it's a climate change related project. And I want to talk about the way that, I hope you'll think about how you also might be able to do some climate change work. So like I said, their program is a program of North Coast Opportunities. That's a picture of Patty Bruder there, who's the executive director of NCO. And it's a community action agency with one of our primary goals is to alleviate poverty. And we're doing that by envisioning healthy, vibrant, compassionate, strong communities. And we're working with communities with engagement and to try and strengthen and make our communities healthier. You might have heard of some of the programs that we have with North Coast Opportunities, Caring Kitchen, Food Hub, whole bunch of different programs. Some of the programs have very established processes that they're doing, and some are more project-based. A lot of the work that I do is project-based, so I spend a good deal of time looking for projects that I think might make our community healthier, and then trying to find funding streams or resources that will allow us to bring those projects to life. And when we think about climate change, it can be daunting because, as Bill McKibben said, it's probably the biggest challenge we've ever had. And it can be easy to think that it's beyond our means or that there's nothing you can do. But I think there is things that we can do. And as in this quote here, when things seem like, when you feel helpless or the job is too big, sometimes the best thing to do is to just figure out, well, what small difference can I make? What can we do here locally? So as we asked ourselves that question, what can we do locally and how can we manage it? Myself and Patty Bruder at North Coast Opportunities and Miles Gordon, who started the Gardens Project, we all three, I think pretty much at the same time, came across the California Natural Resources Agency Urban Greening Grant. It's cap and trade funds that are designed to address climate change by reducing atmospheric carbon. And specifically, they want people to do that by creating projects that reduce the vehicle miles that are traveled, and by planting trees strategically so that they shade buildings and decrease energy use. So those are the three things: reducing vehicle miles and planting trees and shading buildings, that gave us points. But they also were looking for additional community benefits. And that's a very wide-ranging kind of idea. So we started by looking around and saying, well, what kind of projects could we do? And we realized that extending the rail trail to the south was one idea, building a community garden was another, or extending the rail trail to the north was a third idea. And so the first idea that we considered was this idea of bringing it to the south. Norgard Lane is down at the south end of town, and here, this is the old railroad tracks. And so we thought, well, if we build a new path along here, we can get people to drive their cars less and walk and ride their bikes for transportation. And maybe we can create a little new park down here as well. And we can plant oak trees all along it. But as we looked at this project, we came up with a couple of different problems that made it seem like that project probably wouldn't work. So a second project we looked at is that we looked at a community garden that's right off of Gobi Street. And that garden is on private property. And we thought, well, could we use this money to buy that property? Would that be a project that we could do? And what we found was that the property owner wasn't really willing to sell the way we needed them to sell for this grant. And we also realized that they weren't going to give us credit for carbon reduction or carbon capture for the plants because they were really looking at trees. So the third project that we looked at was the one that we ended up pursuing, which was extending the rail trail to the north from Clara Street to Brush Street. So once we decided that we thought that was the good project to do, we went to the city and we told them that, this grant exists, we think we can work on this. And they said, we don't really have the resources to do that. But we said, well, we'll work with you. We'll write the grant and we'll develop the proposal and develop all the programs, work on all the things that build social capital, that bring all the additional benefits. If you'll just build build the trail. And this is Ben Kakayama, one of the engineers who was working at the city at the time. And they said, well, yeah, if you do all of that work, then we can do it. So by having the collaboration and finding partners, we realized we could go ahead and make this project work. And when I talk about partners, part of what was appealing to the Natural Resource Agency is that we brought in a ton of community partners. We brought in the Sanhedrin chapter of the Native Plant Society and the California Naturalist Program, the Community Foundation, the Ukiah Valley Trail Group, Ford Street Project. We got all of these people to say that they would contribute in some way, that they would give volunteers, that they would provide expertise, or maybe make matching donations, and that we could use those matches to make this a stronger program. And because we were able to bring all these people together and present that case, we were awarded the grant in November of 2017 for $1.8 million to do this. Now, I want to say one of my primary messages of this is that you can make a difference and all of us can jump in and do things. And in terms of addressing climate change, this is a pretty small project and a small thing, but it's a bigger project than many people would be ready to do. So I want you to think about the process that we went through, that we were thinking about many different projects, thinking about who we could work with, and then kind of figuring out, well, what's the thing that's going to work best and where I can have the most impact. And so that was kind of the process that we went through. So whether you're doing a really big project or a medium-sized project or just doing some small little thing, we all can make a difference. So we got the grant, like I said, it was back in November of 2017 and it was awarded. But then there was a lengthy process that still had to happen before things could happen. And one of the conditions of the grant was that we had to be finished by March of this year. So just recently, we had to have everything that we were going to do for the grant completed. But the city had to go through a relatively lengthy process of completing the design and doing environmental studies. And then they had to put out a request for proposals. They had to look at various contractors' proposals and decide who they wanted to give the contract to, all of that before they could even start work. And so it was early last year, mid last year, when they finally really got started working on building the trail. Now, for us, our primary role in the project was to plant trees and plant native plants, and we couldn't do any of that until the construction was completed. So they managed to finish the construction. I was getting pretty nervous late last year because we hadn't been able to start our portion of the project yet. But late last year, November, December, they finished constructing the path. And you can see here, this is a before picture and a picture once the path was completed. You can see here's the tree here that matches up over here. It's the same spot, but making some progress. So that left us starting, so I take a step back. While they were doing the construction, we did go ahead and start collecting seeds and starting plants that we would be ready to plant at this time. So this is a volunteer from the California Native Plant Society collecting some acorns from a valley oak that was right there on the site. Our goal was to plant 30 plus oak trees, which would be capturing the primary place that the carbon is captured. We wanted to plant 500 native plant shrubs and 4,000 native grasses. So it took up a lot of room, was one of the discoveries that we made. As we started to do this, we realized that space was a real problem for us. These native grasses, this is about 1,200 native grasses right here, and that took up, an 8-foot long bench just to do that many grasses. And this is maybe 40 to 50 of the 500 plants that we needed. So one of the things we had to figure out was how are we going to manage all of these plants and keep them alive and nurture them until they're ready to plant when we have a very short window of opportunity to plant. So what we did was we got volunteers. This is Allison. She lives up in Laytonville, and she adopted about 40 of our native grass plants. She's got a tray of Elamus glaucus there, and she was one of about 18 different volunteers who contributed by taking care of the plants so that they'd be ready for us to plant once we had the opportunity to plant them. And the reason we use volunteers rather than just asking for grant money is because we're engaging the entire community by doing that. We're getting the inspiration and the creativity of local people and the buy-in of local people and ownership of people who are going to be using the trail. So it's really important for us, for a variety of reasons, to engage the community in this way. And in this way, we can make this place a great place. One of the struggles that we've had with the old railroad corridor is it has a history of being a place where there's lots of homelessness and not a perception of safety. So we want to look at all the different elements we can bring to play to make it a great place for people to be. So like I said, just early this year, we finally were in a place where we could start doing planting, and we had to plant regardless of the weather. So this was one of the first volunteer days we had. It was pouring down rain, and we're lucky that we had volunteers come out. Those blue tubes all have acorns being planted right in there for what'll be some of our 30 oak trees that we're going to be seeing. And the volunteers really on that first work day just worked through just the pouring down rain. And just a great show of community support for the project. We're also looking for people to adopt sections. So in the first section of trail that was built, we planted 24 oak trees there, and we had volunteers adopt those trees and water those through the first hot summers to keep them alive. It's a little difficult to see in these plants, but there's a little valley oak tree right there that they've been taking care of. And there's a little valley oak tree. It might be it's an oak tree in any case right here. And this is one of the things that we'll be looking for in the future, and the kind of thing that people can join in and help and make a difference in this way. So like I said, there's going to be over 30 oak trees planted there, and they have the effect of sequestering a lot of carbon. This is one of the little interpretive signs that we put up along the trail to help with this. So when we took over trying to plant on this, the soil is terrible. It's been a railroad corridor for all this time. So we have to try and build up the soil the best we can. So we went to local wineries, and they have these cardboard pieces called sliders, and they donated those. And cold creased compost, you can see in the background here, there's a pile of compost back here that they donated. And we asked local tree people to donate wood chips for us. And we got all this stuff donated, and we put down the cardboard, and then we put the compost on top of the cardboard and the wood chips on top of that. It's as Max was talking about, it's a permaculture kind of approach to doing the work. And in this way, we're building up the soil, we're providing nutrients, and the wood chips will help retain moisture so that the plants will grow better. And so again, it was all volunteers doing this work. We were scrambling to try and get it done just as fast as we possibly could, because we have to have it done, everything planted by the end of March. This is Carolyn Brown, who works for Ford Street. She was a major partner in this project, as we used her team to do workforce development. So she was training people as part of the project, how to nurture the plants, how to plant the plants, and will continue by having some of her clients learning how to do native plant landscaping work. That's part of the additional benefit kind of thing that I think makes the California Natural Resource Agency like this project. Here, still pretty early in the planting process, each one of those little pink flags is showing one of the places that we've got a plant planted. And again, our goal was to have 500 shrubs, and each one of these blue things, there's acorns planted in that. We ended up planting a small oak start right next to each one of those. And we'll just see which of those do better. So here you can see right there, this is pretty close to the same place that we had the previous photos, before photos. You can see the cardboard's all been put in place. People are planting some of the plants there. And once those plants were planted, we went ahead and spread compost on top of that, and then mulch will go on top of that. And here we have the before, during, and after project. Well, they're still all a little bit before, but here we have the first picture before anything happened, then with the paved, and now here's that section. As you can see, it's starting to look nicer. So part of the project that we did was we included these interpretive signs, inexpensive interpretive signs that we put up there, and they had 10 or 12 of the different native plants. So we're using all native plants, and these little displays show what kind of plant it is, how they grow. And so this is information about how you could use this plant in your own garden. And it shows what kind of wildlife it supports. And this is one of the ways that it was great to have the Native Plant Society engaged with us, because they were able to give us the expertise and tell us the importance of doing this. And so the native plants, once they're established, they're not going to really need much water, and they support all of these different wildlife and create ecosystems. And again, this is something that anybody can do. You don't have to go out and get huge grants to do this work. You can take the lawn up from your own house and replace it with native plants, or just plant one tree, or just add a few native plants to your garden, because every native plant that you put into your garden is providing new habitat for the animals that they support. And as part of this whole web of life, each one of these small steps is something that's going to help us combat climate change. Again, we're going to be looking for volunteers to help us either take care of the trees that we've planted there, or even adopt an entire section of the trail. So if you want to help with that, we would love to have your help. We produced, as part of this project, a handout, shows many of the different non-native weeds, so that if you're wanting to help out, we can help educate you about what you should pull and what you should water. So that was pretty much that project. We've still got work to do there. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to water the site. We're hoping and expecting to be able to put in irrigation, but that got sidelined when when the pandemic hit. We had to kind of stop work on that. But we're looking at grant funding now to do the next steps. And one possibility would be to bring recycled water to that entire railroad corridor, so we could plant plants all up and down that. We definitely want to extend the Great Redwood Trail, the Railroad Corridor Trail, to the south. We want to bring it to the north and connect it to Mendocino College. We're also got funding, we didn't, but there is funding for doing rail trail, Great Redwood Trail in Willits. And of course, developing the Ore Creek Greenway is another project that we see as a really important thing for us to do as a next step. So you can make a difference. You can help us. You can help any one of these other great organizations: Ukiah Valley Trail Group, Sanhedrin Chapter, the Native Plant Society, Redwood Valley Outdoor Education Project. You see Hopland Extension, or Climate Action Mendocino is another group that's doing great work on climate change work, and you can reach out to them. And sometimes it's easier to just help somebody else than to try and do your own project. On this final slide here, this is a little milkweed. It's going to support it's a woolly milkweed, Andrea points out, and it'll support. I'm losing my mind. Monarch butterflies. Yeah, that little plant's about an inch tall right now, and there's a number of them out there that are looking for people to help it with an occasional watering. So if you want to adopt a trail or join us for one of our work days, we'd love that. You can get more information at info@mendotrails.org. And I guess I went through this a little too quick, but probably people aren't going to be disappointed to be done early. I think that's all I have. And if there's any questions, I would be happy to entertain them. Oh, stop share. That's what I'm looking for. Anyway, that's that. We got somebody waiting to be admitted. So that's it for our inaugural virtual Earth Day event. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to say thank you to our sponsor, CNS Waste.
Oh, thank you.
They were our sole sponsor this year, so we're very thankful for their support.
Sonia, we had some funding from Ukiah Natural Foods, didn't we?
No.
We didn't? Okay, no. But still, it's a great organization.
Yes, absolutely. The trail group got some funding from the co-op.
Oh yeah, well that's a different thing. Okay, so they've supported some of our other projects that are similar to that, so we appreciate that.
I was trying to put you on video.
No.
And we'll be figuring out how to get this video as a resource online so that those who are not able to join us can then download it. And we'll also be listing the resources on our website as well. So we will be sending out the link for that.
Yeah, I think I was successful in getting most of this stuff recorded. I was trying to stop it at at the end of each presentation and start it again at the beginning, so that there would be discrete videos, so you don't have to watch 4 hours of this thing. You could choose which section you wanted to watch. And yeah, we'll definitely get that on Ukiah Valley Trail Group's website at mendotrails.org, and then perhaps on Walk and Bike Mendocino's website. We'll put it on Walk and Bike Mendocino's website as well. And so you'll be able to see the videos there. But thanks for everybody. Happy Earth Day and happy Earth Week. And as Sonia said, thanks to our sponsors, CNS Waste, and for all the presenters who took their time to share information with us. And with that, I don't know, should we have a song? Does anyone want to sing or something? Or a song or a prayer? Thanks to everybody. Stay safe, and yeah, congratulations to everybody. A fun way to spend a day. And we'll see you next time.
Take care.